So let's start at the beginning. How did the adoption option start?
Well, it's quite a while ago now. It was back in 2004. I was chatting to our daughter's birth mum, and she was 17 when she found out she was pregnant. And she was actually 7 months pregnant when she found out she was pregnant, so it was a big shock for her. She was living independently in Christchurch, and she thought, well, what are my options? So she told me she'd found it really hard to find out any information about adoption, and I thought, well, I wonder if that is the norm. So I went round everywhere that you would go if you're a pregnant young girl to find out about adoption. And everybody said to me, oh, we wouldn't even know where to send someone if they wanted to know about adoption, which really surprised me. And I just thought, well, that seems crazy. How do you make an informed decision if you haven't got all the facts? So we actually launched in 2007, which really is only yesterday in terms of pregnancies. And still adoption is declining every year. When we adopted our daughter back in 2002, I think there was 81 adoptions, and last year there was 60. And that really is why we keep going. You know, we're just trying to get the message out that for some women, adoption's a positive option. And also the main message we're getting out there is adoption's really different from how it used to be. In the past, there was this idea that a baby's a blank slate, and take this child away, raise it as your own, and that'll be great. Well, it's been proved that that was an absolutely disastrous policy, because obviously there's a 9-month connection to a biological mum there, which can't be ignored. There's also a genetic component, and the fact that really I believe it's a fundamental human right to know your heritage, to understand why you look the way you look, why you've got certain traits and characteristics. And unless you've actually got that information, part of you's missing. So with open adoption, you actually have access to your past. You understand why you were placed for adoption. And also, if the biological parents want it, you can have ongoing contact with them. It's very much driven by the people who are placing the child for adoption. It's what they want and how much contact they want. And it's a contact agreement that's drawn up at the time. What we found is it's a starting point, and so often it grows to be much more than that. Certainly in our case, we started off with a goodwill agreement saying, you know, we might see them every 3 months. Well, we're just extended family now, and we go on holiday with them. And after the earthquake here in Christchurch, we actually went to live with our daughter's biological family for a month. You know, we're that close that we actually are very much part of the family. But that's how it worked in our case. Not everybody wants that. We would love to see the Adoption Act from 1955 updated so this contact agreement has a legal status, because I think a basic legal requirement of if people want to stay in contact, that will legally happen, just means there's a bit more protection there for birth families. But yeah, we would love to see that in law as well.
You mentioned the earthquake, and obviously we're not in your home at the moment. So what actually happened to you?
Well, the Adoption Option Trust is very Christchurch based. We've got 6 trustees and we're all in Canterbury. For me personally, we lost our home in the February quake, and that was quite traumatic in lots of ways. But for the Adoption Option Trust, obviously we lost our office, we lost all our files and things like that. So it's been very difficult to get up and running. The treasurer of the trust lost, she actually fled Christchurch because she found it very, very traumatic. And she just said she couldn't come back. So they've moved to Australia now. That was a huge loss for us. The lady who does the minutes at our meetings was crushed in the Pine Gould building, and she's just got out of hospital last week, so she's had 4 and a bit months in hospital. So personally it's been incredibly traumatic, and for the trust it's been very traumatic. And what we're hoping is that people in Wellington, Auckland, North Island would actually step up and say they want to be involved now, because obviously in Christchurch people are very involved with rebuilding their lives, and I know in the next 5 years I've got 2 houses to build, so it's actually really difficult to keep everything going. So we are really keen for people elsewhere to step in and say they want to be part of the trust.
So you've been through an earthquake, your home is wrecked, you're living in someone else's house. What is it that's still driving you? Because it's obvious you're still passionate about adoption.
Well, it's really interesting. I mean, I am a Christian. It's certainly the trust actually isn't a ministry or anything. It's a non-political, non-religious organisation, and our other trustees come from various different backgrounds, but they've all got the passion for adoption. My passion for adoption actually is based on a verse, which is the verse very dear to me. It's Proverbs 24, verse 11, about holding back people who are heading towards disaster and staggering towards death. And I just feel that there's a lot of people out there who think they haven't got any options, think they haven't got any choices, that termination's the only choice they've got. And that really drives me, because I really think people need to know there is another option. Sadly, I just heard of a case on the radio of a baby being left in a plastic bag. There's no need for that. There's never any need for that. There's so many couples out there who would love to give a child a home. And that really does drive me. And I think it's just knowing that actually, yes, houses are important, we have to live somewhere, but at the end of the day, all that stuff's not really that important. You know, it's more about life, and that's what's important.